Hi everyone, this is Omar from TravelSummary.com. Today we're going to be going over one of the most common questions in the points and miles world, and that is how do you get from the US mainland to Hawaii using the fewest amount of points and miles as possible? I think a lot of people would be surprised to find out that it's not the US carriers that offer the best deals to Hawaii, but it's actually a lot of the international programs that offer some of the best values to get from the US mainland to the Hawaiian Islands. And believe me when I say you're going to want to stay tuned until the very end of this video when I go over the most efficient way to get there, because it is, in my opinion, not just the best way to get from the US to Hawaii, but it is the best value in the points and miles world, period. It provides such an amazing value that I think so many people have not heard of it. It's a little bit of an unusual program, but it's not also that hard. It's not that hard to get those points and miles. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to go over all the other options as well, and I'm also going to cover both economy and business class. Also keep in mind that as I'm going through all the amount of points and miles that would be required, I'm going to be talking about one-way prices. So keep in mind that you will need to double it if you're looking for a round-trip flight, which most of you probably are. So keep that in mind as well. So let's get right into it. Before we move on, I just want to quickly remind everybody to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of my content going forward. I do a lot of review videos, credit cards, and sweet spot videos like this one. I'm going to do a lot more of these kind going forward. So if you like this content, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the videos. The first program that we're going to cover is the British Airways program. British Airways is of course a member of the One World Alliance, which is the same alliance that American Airlines is a member of. Now the reason British Airways is actually such a good airline to book with is because they use what's called a distance-based award chart. This distance-based award chart allows us to have a sweet spot of the West Coast, basically Los Angeles and Phoenix, to the Hawaiian Islands. American does fly out of both of those cities to Hawaii, and so the price that you would be looking to pay for these flights from Los Angeles and Phoenix to Hawaii is 13,000 points, which they call avios, on a one-way economy ticket. This is a very good value when you consider a lot of the other mileage programs start at around 30,000 miles for a one-way ticket from the US mainland to Hawaii. So 13,000 avios is an exceptionally good value. You just have to pay the taxes on top of that, which is going to be true for all the other flights as well. So if you were looking to fly business class, however, the price would nearly triple. It would become about 38,750 British Airways avios to book that same flight one way in business class. I don't necessarily recommend that one because it is a little bit expensive, but if you have the avios, then why not make use of them? As you recall, British Airways is a transfer partner of both American Express Membership Rewards and of Chase Ultimate Rewards, so there are plenty of options for you to get these avios. American Express also frequently has transfer bonuses, and we've seen them up to 40 and 50% in the past for British Airways. They don't run them that frequently, maybe about once a year or so, but when they do come, you definitely want to take advantage of them, especially if you are looking to travel to Hawaii. Now, British Airways is not just valuable for American Airlines flights, but also for Alaska Airlines flights. This is one of the seldom discussed partnerships that exist outside of an alliance, and it is also one of the most useful, especially when you're looking to go to Hawaii. So Alaska flies out of San Diego, Los Angeles, San Jose, Seattle, and various other Portland out of on the West Coast. And again, you can take advantage of the exact same distance-based award chart. All of those airports that I just mentioned and any others on the West Coast that Alaska rather flies out of are going to be subject to that same pricing, which is the 13,000 avios on a one-way economy ticket and the 38,750 on a business class ticket. These are again very good values. The main difference is that American Airlines flights can be booked on the British Airways website, whereas Alaska availability does not unfortunately show on the British Airways website. So you're going to have to call in to British Airways in order to book Alaska Airlines flights. It's kind of a double-edged sword in my opinion, because although you will not be able to find the availability online, it usually means there is more availability for people to book when they do call in. Because obviously if it's so easy for people to book, there's going to be a lot of people booking it. That decreases the amount of availability. But if you have a certain bucket that's available and you have to call in, that takes a lot of people out of the game. Either they don't know that Alaska is a partner, or they're not willing to make that phone call. There's a lot of millennials like myself or younger people that just don't like using the phone. So in that situation, you may actually find a lot more availability. Plus Alaska, like I mentioned, flies out of quite a few airports. So British Airways is a very useful program, especially when you consider you can transfer from Chase, you can transfer from American Express, and American Express does run transfer bonuses relatively frequently. So this is one of the best programs that you can use to get from the US to Hawaii, as long as you're looking to go from the West Coast. Now, Dallas does have American Airlines flights from Dallas to Hawaii. The price is going to be $20,750 avios for that one-way economy ticket. It's not the greatest price, but it's also not the worst price. So again, like I mentioned, there's a lot of programs that start at 30,000 miles for a one-way economy ticket. So if you have Avios or if you have points in both your American Express and Chase programs, then this could be a good value for you. The next program that we're going to discuss is actually Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines is a favorite program of a lot of people in the points and miles world, not just because Singapore Airlines is a great airline to fly and one of my favorites. I actually just did a review of one of the Suites class flights, so take a look at that if you haven't already. But it's also a favorite because it's so easy to acquire their KrisFlyer miles. You can transfer from Chase Ultimate Rewards, American Express membership rewards, and Citi Thank You Points. All three of the major programs from these banks transfer to Singapore KrisFlyer miles. So it's generally very easy to acquire these miles by signing up for credit cards or spending on your daily basis with credit cards from these banks. Now, the reason why Singapore Airlines is a good value to get from the US to Hawaii is because Singapore is a member of the Star Alliance. You'll recall that United Airlines is also a member of the Star Alliance. So Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer miles can be used to fly on United Airlines. The cost for these flights is in economy, it's 17,500 miles. And unlike British Airways that we just discussed, this is not distance-based. So this is anywhere from the US mainland to Hawaii. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Los Angeles or in New York or in Florida or any other state for that matter in the continental US, the cost is going to be 17,500 miles to get from the US to Hawaii on United. Now, again, you will need United Saver availability, so you'll need to search for that just to make sure it's available. But when you do find it, that is the cost. If you're looking to fly business class, the cost is going to be 34,500 miles. So it's a little bit cheaper than what British Airways was charging, but keep in mind that this does include flights from New York, for example. So there are that's a really long flight. New York to Hawaii is a considerable distance and a really long flight. And United does have some decent planes on some of these longer routes with lie flat seats. So that is something that you may be interested in, and it could be a good value given that, you know, it's such a long flight if you're coming from the East Coast. If you're coming from the West Coast, it may not necessarily be as good of a value, especially when you're talking about economy, but it could be useful. Singapore Airlines is actually also a partner of Alaska Airlines, so very similar to what we just discussed with British Airways. But they have a different award chart for Alaska Airlines. So this partnership is a little bit weird to me when you look at the award chart, especially for flights to Hawaii. They do it in different zones. So it's not exactly based on distance, but they have different states assigned to different zones. Zone 1 would include all the West Coast states, so California, Oregon, and Washington. Zone 1 to Hawaii on Alaska Airlines, and like I mentioned earlier, there are several flights from the West Coast to Hawaii on Alaska Airlines. Those flights would cost 12,000 miles one way in economy. So that's pretty good value, I think, again, using the KrisFlyer miles. Zone 2 is going to be states that are a little bit further east. And again, I'll put them on the screen right now so everybody can read. I think I'm going to put it up here. Those flights are going to be actually cheaper, even though it's going to be a longer distance. It's going to be cheaper in Zone 2. It's going to be just 11,500 miles to get from Zone 2 states to the Hawaiian Islands, as long as you're flying on Alaska Airlines entirely for the trip. So you will probably have to connect from a lot of these states to some other city on the West Coast in the 3 cities in Zone 1 or 3 states in Zone 1 to get to Hawaii. But it is cheaper, and 11,500 miles is pretty cheap to get to the Hawaiian Islands. Zone 3 is actually going to be a little bit more expensive. So it's a few states further to the east. It's actually a lot of states further to the east. And those states, again, I'm going to put it up over here on the screen, those are going to be 12,500 miles to get from these states to the Hawaiian Islands. And again, it has to be entirely on Alaska Airlines. Unfortunately, Zone 4 and Zone 5 is actually Hawaii, but Zone 4, which includes basically all the East Coast states, including New York and Boston and Florida, those ones unfortunately cannot be booked on using Alaska Airlines and KrisFlyer miles. I'm not sure why that is. You would think they could do it, but just charge a few extra miles. But for whatever reason, unfortunately, if you're on the East Coast, you cannot use KrisFlyer miles to fly Alaska Airlines to Hawaii. But at least there are some other options for you as well. The third one is one that I actually hate to discuss, and that is Delta Airlines. Now, Delta is one of the major airlines in the United States, and it is actually a great airline to fly. They just have a terrible frequent flyer program. So the Delta Sky Miles program, unfortunately, they did away with award charts completely, and that makes it extremely difficult to find flights that would be considered cheap or to know whether you're getting a good deal or not. And that's especially true when it comes to partner airlines. So, for example, from Los Angeles to Hawaii, you can find flights in basic economy, so they allow you to book in the various different economies up to first class. In basic economy, you can actually find flights from Delta to Hawaii for just 13,000 Delta Sky Miles on a one-way economy ticket. That's pretty good value, but generally you want to fly in main cabin, you want to have access to a seat assignment, something like that. And so that cost would be about $15,500 on the cheapest, from what I can tell, from Los Angeles specifically to the Hawaiian Islands. And if you wanted to fly business class, it would be 44,000 miles, the cheapest, from Los Angeles to Hawaii. Now, again, the reason why I hate this is because Los Angeles prices are not going to be the same as any other city. It's not going to be the same as Atlanta or Salt Lake City or any other city that you can fly Delta out of. So those prices are going to be incrementally more probably because they are further away from Hawaii than Los Angeles is. And that's just how Delta works. It's a little bit unfortunate, but I did want to include that in this video because it is an airline that a lot of people do fly and a lot of people do have access to because American Express is a transfer partner of Delta, or Delta is a transfer partner of American Express, and so it's easy to acquire those miles. So I did want to include that, but it's not one of my most recommended. But if you do happen to live on the West Coast or someplace that is close to the West Coast, then it could be a good value for you to get to Hawaii if you have those miles. Now we can go on to my favorite points and miles award that exists. To me, this is the best value of any program, of any route, anywhere in the world. And I'm so excited actually to discuss this. I can't even come up with the words for it. So this is a program that a lot of people will probably not have used in the past. It is the Turkish Airlines Miles and Smiles program. Turkish Airlines is a member of, or a transfer partner of, Citi Thank You Rewards. So if you have a Citi credit card that earns Thank You Rewards, like a Prestige card or a Citi Thank You Rewards or Citi Rewards Plus, all of those points would allow you to transfer into Turkish Miles and Smiles miles, basically. It's a little bit redundant. So the reason why this is so valuable is Turkish Airlines is a member of the Star Alliance. Star Alliance, as you recall from, as we discussed with Singapore Airlines, is a partner of United Airlines. And so that allows you to book any United Airlines flights that are available at the Saver Award Space for whatever Turkish Airlines charges. And what does Turkish Airlines charge? They charge just 7,500 miles in economy to get from the US mainland to Hawaii. It's actually better than that. It's from anywhere in the US to anywhere in the US. So it's not even from the US to Hawaii, it's just US to US. And because Hawaii is part of the US, it doesn't matter whether you're flying from Los Angeles or from Alaska or from New York or from Florida or anywhere else, it's 7,500 miles one-way economy on United Airlines flights. That is insane value, especially for a flight from New York all the way to Hawaii. And even better than that, and the one that I would actually recommend, the one that is in my mind, the best value, is booking business class, because business class flights are just twice that price. So for 15,000 miles, you can get business class one way from the US to Hawaii, from New York to Hawaii in business class for just 15,000 miles. That is insane. That is just a small premium over the economy price that we were discussing with British Airways Avios and with all the other transfer partners with KrisFlyer. I mean, it's such an unbelievable value. It's cheaper than most economy flights. It's actually less than half the price of what a lot of airlines charge for just economy one way from the US to Hawaii. So there's no doubt in my mind that Turkish Airlines is the best way to book, not just to Hawaii, but from anywhere in the US to anywhere in the US, as long as you can find that United Airlines award availability. And one bonus tip is a lot of things that I see written about in blogs about this program is that you have to call in order to book these flights. That is not true. You can actually book Star Alliance flights on the Turkish Airlines Miles and Smiles website, but you have to know exactly where to go. So I'm going to put in the description box as some links and some directions on how you can actually get to those areas where you can book those Star Alliance flights. So it's very simple. You can actually search just United Airlines to find their Saver Award space. And then once you find that space, just search that same thing on Turkish Airlines. That's the way that I recommend doing it. That's the fastest way. And I'll also put up some examples over here for you guys to see. But again, it's 7,500 miles from anywhere in the US to anywhere in the US, including Hawaii. Phenomenal value. When you search it, make sure it won't ask you for economy or business actually. It'll just show up. There'll be some radio buttons at the top where you can select economy or business. So if business is available, you'll just have to click that radio button. So you'll probably have to do a couple of searches in order for it to make sense to you. But believe me when I say you're going to have a lot of fun now searching for awards, because it is such a good value that you're going to just want to go to Hawaii because it's just so cheap to do so. One bonus tip that I want to give everybody is for those that have the Chase Sapphire Reserve card and have a lot of Ultimate Rewards points, and those that have the American Express Business Platinum card and have a lot of membership rewards points. I've mentioned in previous videos about a website called theflightdeal.com. The Flight Deal is one of my favorite websites because basically what they do is they find flights that are cheap and they post about them from various cities around the US, and that includes both domestic and international flights. So in fact, in the last few days and weeks, we've seen a lot of flights from the Flight Deal posting to Hawaii, and they post both basic economy and regular economy fares. So depending on what kind of baggage and seat selection options you want, you can select the one that you prefer. But they have a lot of flights that are, for example, between $250 and $400 round trip economy from the US to Hawaii. Now, if you were somebody that has two of those cards and points that I mentioned earlier, then let's take it, for example, Chase Sapphire Reserve and Chase Ultimate Rewards. For a flight that's on the upper end of that, let's say $400, if you were to book through the Ultimate Rewards travel portal, then you would only be charged less than 27,000 points for that round trip economy fare. Now that is, again, it's on the higher end of what the Flight Deal would post. That comes out to just 13,500 points each way economy. That rivals a lot of the programs that I discussed earlier and is cheaper than some of them, including Singapore Airlines. And you won't have to deal with finding award availability. You'll also earn miles on flying these flights because, again, it's booking basically a paid ticket. So even though you won't earn a lot, it is something. It is better than nothing. And it is a good value, especially when you don't have to worry about finding award availability. I think that is probably the biggest benefit of going this route. So that is something to keep in mind. It's just a bonus tip. It doesn't really fall into the miles category, I guess, because it's in a points program that you book with. And American Express is basically the same thing. The Business Platinum card allows you to get a 35% rebate on points that you book. So you have to have a lot of points first in order to book, but you will get them rebated, and it would come out to approximately the same. So again, for a $400 flight, roughly 27,000 American Express membership rewards points. It's an interesting way to go, something to take a look into if you haven't already. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I covered all the programs that I think are the best values to get from the US to Hawaii, including my favorite award that's available, period, regardless of whether it's to Hawaii or anywhere else in the world, because it is such a good value. I hope you guys learned something new from this video, and keep in mind that I did cover only a few programs. I know there's a lot more out there, and they offer varying degrees of prices and availability. So I wanted to consolidate it into a relatively short video. So I didn't cover all of them, but let me know which ones that I may have missed in the comment section. Are there programs that you think that are better or cheaper or better value that you use? Or do you think that what I covered is actually the best ways to get there? Are you surprised by anything that was on the list? Did you know about Turkish Airlines, for example? I'm really curious to know about that. So let me know in the comment section. I'm really curious. And until next time, happy travels.